Now, I think that we could all agree here that 2023 has been the worst year of all time, not just for Disney in the general sense, but also for Bob Iger as an individual, as a CEO running the show and everything Disney, whether it be movies, streaming, or whatever it has to do with the Disney parks. Everything has been tumbling from point A to point B for Bob Iger, and it's not just about him and even the board of directors. We also have to look at some of the top shareholders out there like BlackRock and Vanguard, really pushing all of the DEI nonsense down the common moviegoers' throats, as well as the customers. And Snow White 2024 has not been helping in the least. However, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to a Snow White project. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. And one thing about Snow White is that we all know that this was going to be a disaster right from the get-go, after Peter Dinklage really spoke up against Disney and really made those harsh comments against them without any hesitation. He really did not like the idea of people with dwarfism featuring in Snow White. He was very much against that overall approach, and a lot of actors in Hollywood, by the way, that have dwarfism were deeply offended over what Peter Dinklage did. He basically put them out of work over roles that they could have had, or even those roles that they could have obtained could have very well inspired others out there to take on the possibility of getting roles like that in the future. It's just a domino effect, and there's been a lot of things going on with Peter Dinklage as well that we discussed in the past weeks. More on that a little bit later next week, so stay tuned. But what's even all the more revealing about what's been going on with the whole Snow White dilemma is that we know Snow White going through much damage control by Disney right now. One major development has to do with new truths about the cancellation of a Snow White project by Disney. As it turns out, Disney officially finalized their plan for canceling the Snow White sequel to the 2024 film for multiple reasons. Now, as it turns out, Disney was planning to mark a budget of $350 million for the Snow White 24 sequel that was going to continue the story of ZEGLER's Snow White. Disney decided to cancel this film entirely, as it turns out, due to not just Bob Iger's cost containment plan, wreaking havoc on Disney movies in general, but also, let's not forget, over the fact that now Disney is going to pursue another remake all over again that will follow the source material closer to the 37 original, while also embracing their DEI agenda at the same time. Now, the firing of ZEGLER also made things complicated to continue development on the sequel to Snow White 24. The plan was to focus on the 7 magical creatures' female cousins as being a central part of the story. Disney wanted to make this an all-female-led story for the most part, with the Evil Queen's brother as the main villain attempting to resurrect his sister, the Evil Queen, through dark magic and sorcery. This was the general plot concept put together by Greta Gerwig and director Mark Webb. Now, let me just say one thing about this, and why it goes to show you that Disney has no creativity whatsoever. Basically, what they're doing here is that they are taking key examples from a movie called Happily Ever After 1989, a movie that, by the way, Disney despised because they did not approve that sequel to be made by another Hollywood studio. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Basically, what they took from that story that was going to be inserted into this now canceled 24 sequel was going to focus on the Evil Queen's brother, Lord Malice, as well as the female variants of the 7 dwarfs, or in this case, the female 7 magical creatures that were going to be the cousins of the male versions, or the mixed versions, whatever have you, some of them, in the current one. Now, interestingly enough, we already know that Disney, in the current film, it's going to be a mixture of different genders, different ethnicities, and different heights, which is just ridiculous, and it just goes to show you that they don't know what they're doing. So basically they were going to double down on this story, making it an all-female led story where making the males either evil or clumsy from what it sounds like. And look, it's not surprising coming out of Greta Gerwig after all. I mean, she did write the Barbie movie, she did create that movie, let's not forget about that. She was really on the whole taking down the patriarchy obsession in that film, and the same was going to apply in the Snow White sequel. We'll talk about that in just a second. Now, what's interesting about this is the fact that Disney is now embracing a full-on reboot/remake again to basically make people forget about the upcoming Snow White disaster. Now, that's counterproductive. Why would you even want to release this to begin with, you may ask? Well, there's a lot of complications that come into play about all of that. I keep saying that they have to Batgirl this thing, they should just write this movie off and just call it a day. Lock it up in a vault somewhere. Hell, you know, Brendan Fraser, alright? Great actor, by the way. He dealt with that when it came to his Batgirl movie getting locked up forever, never to see the light of day. He dealt with that. I think that somebody like Rachel Zegler or Gal Gadot could absolutely deal with that as well. So there's really no excuse for Disney to really put this movie out in theaters. But the sequel that got canceled was definitely a movie that was going to be an epic disaster. Now, as of now, Disney is officially dropping the Snow White 24 sequel from their in-development schedule, and instead will be embracing a full-on remake that will be treated as rebooting the story yet again with a brand new actress. Mark Webb will not be returning as a director, as he was also recently fired by Disney and from his 4-movie deal to create 3 more Snow White films, 2 of which were going to be prequels and a direct sequel, in this case, as part of the planned Snow White universe, much like the Lion King universe in the works right now. The Snow White sequel that was cancelled was also going to be Greta Gerwig's highlight movie to focus on taking down the patriarchy. This movie was literally going to be a copy and paste scenario of Happily Ever After 1989 as well. The drive of the film was going to be about Snow White leading the 7 magical creatures' female cousins and taking down the evil queen's brother, Lord Malice, and his minions, who were planned to be resurrected huntsmen from the dead, which was an original idea by Disney. Gerwig, the writer, has also been let go from Disney as of now and will not be involved in the planned new remake either. So to really put things more simple here is that basically what Disney is doing, or did, is that they had a sequel in the works that was going to feature ZEGLER leading the 7 magical creatures' female cousins, and it was going to be an all-female focused film purely and only. It already is where it stands with the 24 film for the most part, but they really wanted to double down on this film, really making, you know, an example of Lord Malice, the evil queen's brother, on a journey to resurrecting the evil queen and eventually, and successfully, doing that job. And that's how Gal was going to come back and how she was going to be involved. And that was another factor, by the way, why they canceled the sequel, is that Gal Gadot walked away from this project. She wanted nothing to do with Snow White any further. She was just disgusted over the scenes that got deleted from the current film and all the alterations. So anyway, guys, you know, drop a comment below. Fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. And I will catch you guys later.